to talk about. To what extent that's true. I mean, I still think that there's a better sales job to be had, and we seem to be saying that so often that it's, you do have to wonder, well, is it us? Is it them? Is it both of us? I think it's a bit of column A, column B, but you're right. Tonight was a respectful public policy discussion.
And I think as we reach election day, I think voters would like to see a lot more of this, a lot more of our leaders and people facing up to people and taking these unscripted questions. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that came out of there that they weren't expecting, we weren't expecting, and that's the beauty of the forum.
And I suppose the question is, have those that are most critical just not bothered? That's the other point to make. Have they just said, we have made our decision, I'm not showing up to that, I'm not giving up my night to go and listen to the Prime Minister. They've made their call already. So that is a risk as well.
Or if everyone's sitting there nodding their heads and going, but no thanks, we'll move on. But one thing I've just realised, we didn't talk about the carbon tax at all. There was no question, to do with the carbon tax and fears in that regard. I mean, we got the opportunity, Gillard, reaffirmed that the household compensation will still come into effect, even though the tax is not actually hitting or hurting anyone very much. People have seen their electricity bills go up, and they can be assured that they're going to have that money in their pockets. I mean, then the question for Tony Abbott is to what extent is he going to keep that compensation and the changes to the low-income tax threshold. So she can reassure people that we pretty much overcompensated you for the carbon tax, and it seems like that has worked to really neutralise that as an issue, because nobody raised that today.
And the Prime Minister asked again about the budget issue. If we go back to that, you get that the line that we can expect to hear many, many times, I think, over coming weeks and months in this election year, that we will not go down the austerity path. We won't make the cuts that hurt. And I think inherent in that is the contrast with the coalition, who the government argues will go down that path.
I think there are 2 points. The first is that the government has decided that jobs and looking after people is more important than having a good set of budget numbers, despite all the reports that are coming out, and the fact that you do need to, over the longer term, or even the medium term, you do need to balance your books. You can't live beyond your means forever. But the second point on that is, I think that the government, it's easier for them to say that because they can't deliver a surplus in this year, so they're better to change the argument to something else, and saying that to try and do it would be too savage. So I think there's a dual argument they're running.
Well, let's recap a little bit of what the Prime Minister said on that issue, and we'll come back to Jessica for your thoughts on that.
When you've got that kind of problem with the amount of money coming in, you can do one of two things. You can say, well, we'll keep cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting on the expenditure side, which would really hurt people. Or you can take the approach that we're taking and say, well, the revenue coming in will recover over time. The important thing now is to match any new spending with savings. We've got to keep our economy strong. Cutting and cutting and cutting wouldn't help our economy stay strong. It would hurt people.
The Prime Minister on that issue of the spending, they're saying that they've been restrained in terms of spending, but as we heard today from the Grattan Institute, that might not be enough, replacing making some savings, but then having parallel spending.
Yeah, well, that Grattan Institute report was really pointing out for both sides of government that the budget is in trouble. The way things are going, you've got spending going that way and revenues going the other way, and the gap between them is growing. So the question really, from a political point of view, is do people really walk the talk? Do they really want the budget in balance? Do they really want to see the pain that it will take to get you there? Will they cop the tax surplus as soon as possible? He will be out there with harsh spending cuts and not much new spending, and Labor is still, they have those big spending proposals on the table. So when it comes to it, do voters really want the books in balance, or would they really quite like some spending? People want both. They can't have both. So it will be interesting to see which
Absolutely.
one.
Jessica, everyone, thank you for your thoughts tonight. I appreciate it. Phil, you stay with me. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, David Spears, the moderator, will join us for his assessment.